Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Oh, great. There's the clock. My name's Steve. I'm an alcoholic. Before I get too self-obsessed with myself, I want to thank Zoe for coming out with me. Danny, thank you for asking me to share and rescheduling it. Inconveniently, my son and daughter-in-law had a child, so I had to reschedule and fly to Florida and see the new baby. But that's one of the blessings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank Kevin, secretary, and Mark. Last time I saw Mark, we went to a concert at, I think, the Wiltern, so it was a good time. First off, this is nothing like the first meeting I walked into of Alcoholics Anonymous. You guys got food. I mean, this is like Caterers Anonymous or something like that. Looking over there. You do it right. I tell you, I walked in, my first meeting was an Alano club. I was 16 years old, and these sons of guns, you don't cuss at the podium, all looked like they needed a drink. No, they sat there. It was like a noon meeting, and I remember some guy was at the podium, and I screwed up. I sat in the front. I didn't know newcomers sit in the back. No one told me. And so I sat in the front, and the guy was looking at me like I'm looking at Danny, and you said, I used to take people like you and slit their throats with their money in their pockets so I could get a drink. I'm going, damn, this is AA? You know, this is crazy. I was like, I don't want to do this. But, I'm one of those kids. And as I'm sitting here, I'm looking out this window and I see Pali High. And my oldest brother went to Pali. I remember in 1973, the graduation, and that was back in the days of free love and everybody streaking across the football field at the graduation. So this is kind of like a homecoming to me, looking across the street. And my oldest son, and his mother lived in this area, and he went to Calvary. So it's kind of nice to get out to the Palisades. I live more in mid-Wilshire area. But, I'm supposed to tell you if you're new, and welcome. That's amazing. You said 3 days or something like that?
3 full days.
3 full days. Hey, that's a hell of a lot more accomplishment than what I've got, dude. That's awesome. That really is. And the young lady that took the chip for 30. I have a sobriety date, and I got sober when I was 2, just before I tell you this date, July 23rd, 1986. So I've been sober for a few days now, 37 years, almost 10 months. And I would have never thought I would hung out with these SOBs that long, unless something good was happening. So stick around, because you might find out who you really are. Because that's what this whole process is really about. It's finding out who we are. Because when I started to drink and use, I started at a young age, I'm what we call CIA, Catholic Irish alcoholic. And, I grew up, over in mid-Wilshire area, and my old man was a practicing alcoholic. So I saw alcoholism from the get-go, growing up. I didn't want to become an alcoholic. I knew my dad was the nicest dude, an amazing man, amazing in his profession. I still get people. My dad's been dead for almost 45 years, and still people will walk up and say, hey, I knew your dad. And he was just that type of guy. But when he drank, things changed. He was unpredictable. So I didn't want to become an alcoholic, so I didn't start drinking until I was old. I was at least 9 years old or 10 years old before I started to drink, Take the slow roll. Those big box trucks, Young's Market, that deliver at the liquor store? My dad he was about, finances, economy or whatever. So Young's Market used to show up at our house with that big old truck and deliver 40, 50 cases of booze at a time. Every time I see that truck drive by, it's kind of like a spiritual experience. I just look at it and go, okay, God, I get it. You're reminding me. But we had so much alcohol in our house. It was beautiful. And for a young budding alcoholic, and then my old man was a doctor. And my dad was one of the last doctors that could use this stuff called pharmaceutical cocaine. And so I went, I was a pain in the ass in high school. I guess I'm supposed to talk in the mic or it changed. But he had the stuff. And my freshman year in high school, I learned how to type. I went to one of these Jesuit high schools and they wanted everything neat. And so my dad said, hey, why don't you come down to the office and do some typing? I said, sure, Dad. Transcribing, headset, little foot pedal. So I went down there. I was looking for some paper, and I found these 3 2.2-ounce jars of pharmaceutical cocaine. We have our big book over there. I had mine. It was a PDR, Physician's Desk Reference. I knew what I had. I made a small line like this, and I began to type, baby. I was a fast typist. I was reliable. This was my freshman year in high school. I was on the track team, the volleyball team. I became a yell leader. I was busy. I just will leave it at that. So I got Dad's basement where we have all this stuff and Dad's office. My mom was going, hey, why are you taking a taxi, your father's office at like 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday? Well, Dad needs me. I'm just going to go down and help out Dad. So like I said, I had an amazing father. That dude, he didn't know how good he was treating me, But if you do those type of things, and, I'm a spoiled little brat. My dad got me a car at 16. So that first AA meeting was like 16 men a day, because I was drinking and using way before that. And, kids don't drive well anyways. I remember my oldest son flipped his pickup truck going up to the Highlands here, at 16. Kids don't drive well. And I was one of those kids and I got busted. And I got sentenced to those 3 AA meetings. And that first one was a Alano Club. So the second one, I thought I'd take a different path. I went over to West Hollywood to Friday Night Plumbers Park. It didn't say Men's Stag, but it appeared to be that way. And these guys came over to me. I would have sworn they kind of glided on over. And he came up to me and you go, do you want what we got? And I'm going, hey, easy, sailor. I'm under a year. Be easy, 16, you're cute, And, damn, I'm going, this AA stuff is what? And I got to get one more AA meeting in, and I'm like, this sucks. And so I did the next one up on Larchmont Boulevard, kind of the neighborhood place where I live. And I go in there and I see John's mom or whatever else. I know I'm not playing with John anymore. And so it's just like, the old Western Federal building. I'm like, I'm not doing this again. No way. First time you get arrested, it's kind of humiliating. You're like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't get another deuce for at least 6 months. And, I got another 502. That's what we used to call it back in the dark ages. That's a drinking and driving. And this time, I don't know how many meetings. I had to do more. I went over, I think, the Clare Foundation for that one. It might have been a 90-day class. Learn how to drink and drive. And, I don't know. And then I got another one, and this one was over on like Barrington and National, that cut through street or something like that. I got another one. Just sucks, But then it's not as a big a deal anymore. You kind of getting used to it. So my parents don't know what to do with me. So I'm in the Beverly Hills Behavioral Modification Center or something, and I'm in this program or that program, trying to figure out what I am as an alcoholic. My senior year in high school, kind of sucked. We had a lot of tragedy in my family and friends. A young lady that was like my closest person. We talked every day. My dad actually had to get a second line for the house in case, someone called him for emergency medical thing. And cause I was always on the phone with Khaki, but she died, got in a car accident, drunk driving with some friends, and she went through the windshield. We were on a vacation in, Hawaii, and my dad promised he wasn't going to drink on this vacation because, it was going to be a family vacation. And my mom and I, we took off to another island, and when we came back, we found my dad with a bottle of scotch and his boxer shorts dictating, working. And he and I got into it. And I believe I was probably the apple of his eye. I was the baby of the family. And we got into it. I left, flew back to the mainland, got in a fight, ended up in ER. And my dad just went and started drinking. Went on a bender, ended up in the hospital, and got very sick with cirrhosis of the liver. And if you watch someone die of cirrhosis of the liver, now my dad was in the Army. He was doctor, he was boxer in the Army. He was a tough son of a gun, but he was nothing when he died, and I went up north to a Jesuit university to check it out. While I was up there, my dad went against medical advice, went home, had dinner with my mom and my brothers and my sister, went upstairs and died. They went to find me and, tracked me down at this school, and they found me, and it was Saturday night, and I was drunk partying, and I came home, but instead of going to my parents' home, went to my dad's office. So already alcohol is changing a little bit because I went down there to see if the drugs were there. And his nurses did what they were supposed to do. They moved that stuff out. Shortly after that, somehow I got out of that little high school, and my mom, brother-in-law, and sister were celebrating that I got out, and they were at Tom Bergen's, if you're local. Like I said, we're Irish, and they were drinking, driving down 6th Street, going crazy, and my brother-in-law crashed the car, killed my sister, and left my mom handicapped. So all of a sudden my drinking changed. Before I was drinking for fun, and I am so grateful for alcohol. My family, we're duck hunters. We got more guns than, half the militia. That's just who we are. My dad was born in another state where, that's just what we did. And thank God for alcohol. Because instead of putting a shotgun in my mouth and pulling the trigger, I put a Tanqueray and tonic. But I was pulling the trigger ever so slowly. And I didn't even know it. And, I started another bender. I think I got another deuce. And my mom got upset. So she said, you got to do something about your drinking, or I'm going to cut you off financially. I used to be blonde, but I'm not dumb. And so mom was paying for everything. And so I found a place called Shadell. And in 10 days and a couple weekend follow-ups, they can cure you of alcoholism. Has anybody ever seen Clockwork Orange? I think Dr. Frawley got his aversion therapy from watching that movie and figured out a way. They shoot you up with an emetic. Emetic makes you violently ill. And then they pour like these water glassfuls of like Tanqueray or Scotch or whatever, and then a little warm water on the top. And you're in a private little bar with mirrors, and, it looks like a bar. It's got little shelves and everything that you like to drink. And the mirrors are important because we like to look at ourselves when we're drinking because we get better looking. But, you get the first one down. I get this first one down, Tanqueray, with just a little warm water. I'm thinking, God, this could be a great way to get sober. I was working that second one, the Chevis, and I didn't have the same reaction. All of a sudden, that emetic hit, and I'm projectile vomiting, and she spins this salad bowl around, and I'm puking. I thought she started to speak German and said Heil as she was trying to kill me. And but we went through this process, and I finally got out of it. They send you to a private little room, turn out all the lights except one spotlight and everything you drank, take rags of what you drank, put them around your head, soak them, and play a tape. Joe's Head, the Evil of Alcohol or something. Great program, I tell you, Clockwork Orange. Then they give you a little something so you're going out both ends. It was amazing. I thought I was going to die. I was like 18 years old the first time I went to that place. And I was pretty strong. I was playing college sports. I was pretty strong, but almost died. But the next day, some lady came in, put an IV in my arm with sodium pentothal, true serum, to find out the real reasons why I drank. Was I sleeping with a dog? What was I doing? Who knows? I have no idea. But they used to record them, sent me home with a bunch of cassettes. They don't do that anymore. Probably a little liability. People are saying things they shouldn't. But, I quit drinking. It worked. I told them I had a drug habit, but I wasn't there for drugs. So I just became a drug addict for a while. Thank God, And so I became a drug addict for a couple of years. Then the drugs were killing me and I had to start drinking again. I was getting sick and, I started to drink. Finally, drink, puke, and finally got it down. And I'm like, boom, that's here. Long Island iced teas came out. I was loving life. And, I guess I had a few too many Long Island iced teas. I was a little drunk, flying down Highland. Neighborhood I grew up in, knew it well. Did a little felony drug driving, hit some car on Highland. I thought I'd take off. So I went to go hide my car in a friend of mine's house in their garage. I guess I was a little more drunk than I thought. Wrong house, wrong garage. So my pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization is, I got busted by West Tech. Dude didn't even have a gun. He just like, and I went to jail, c'est la vie. I've been before. It's not that big of a deal, but now, they have a drinking, snorting, smoking program up there in Santa Barbara. I went back through it, shit ill again. But while I was there, they decided I was crazy. They had all these doctors come in and they committed me to a mental hospital. That sucked, because I went there for like a 10 to 14 day program. So we found our own mental hospital over in Hawaii. My family wanted to get rid of me. Kahe Mohala, the new beginning. And I went over there thinking I'm going to be surfing on the weekends. This is going to be awesome. But that place has the same padded room that the West Hollywood police station, sheriff station has that I've been thrown in before. But sometimes when I drink, I act like I'm crazy, but I'm really not crazy. I just kind of act like I'm crazy. I do crazy shit. But, while I guess I was in the mental hospital, they decided I got locked up over there and Christmas came around and I made little wallets and all that ashtray crap and sent it home for Christmas. And I was there for a few months in this mental hospital. I decided, I better become an alcoholic in here or I'm not getting out. And I became an alcoholic in there and eventually they let me out and they said, if you're ever going to go back to the mainland, there's a little clubhouse on the west side of LA. Go check it out. It was Ohio Street. And I showed up at Ohio Street and I met a guy at the door, Dino Fanenos. I can say his name because he died. A Mexican Lebanese dude. He was, dressed to the nines. He was a flight attendant, and I walk in and he says, hey, I'm going to be your sponsor. I'm like, well, my attorney says I better get a court card signed anyways ahead of time before I go back in front of the judge. And so Dino became my sponsor. And I did everything Dino asked me to do, except quit drinking. But everything else I did. So I was that guy that would keep showing up at the meeting, raising my hand. And on July 23rd, 86, the night before I drank and used, not much, whatever, nothing dramatic happened. But he showed up at my mother's house and the house person opened the door and, I was upstairs because like any good alcoholic, all us men, we go home to mommy. So I'm living at mommy's. I'm there. And, I remember it like yesterday, Maurice opens the door and I could hear my mom in her bed, whatever, kind of saying to Dino, I don't think Steve wants to see you. Because she knows I got drunk and loaded. He goes, I'm sure he doesn't. But he grabbed my ass and took me to a Wednesday night meeting over at the synagogue. And because of that guy going the extra mile, I'm sober today. Mind you, while he was doing this, he was dying of AIDS. But he was carrying the message. I joke about that meeting in West Hollywood. But Dino, he taught me more about what it is to be a man than anybody I really know. He taught me it's okay to give a person a hug and say, I love you. See, I grew up, we have another side of the family. We got the Irish and then we got the whole English, this and that. Let's put it this way. We don't say I love you in my family. So the day my mother passed away, the most I ever got was a Hallmark card that said, love mother. We don't touch. We don't do any of that. And Dino would do that. And the first time I was like, the big book says recoil like a hot flame. But that was like, what are you doing, dude? But what he did is he let me know it's okay to give someone a hug and say, I love you. I had no idea. Eventually, I got that sobriety date. This newcomer and I, she had negative 30 days of sobriety. Somehow she told me she was pregnant. I don't know how. Still trying to figure that one out. We had this little boy, and I remember getting my first visitation with my son Taylor, and I took him to Clancy's backyard. And the men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to change a diaper. Because I was thinking you just go alone, whatever. I don't know what to do with this thing. And, you taught me how to be that, like I just said, my son Taylor and his wife just gave me my second grandbaby, and it's amazing. See, when I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous that first year, I just wanted to stay out of prison because it was my sixth juice. It was a felony drunk driving. And back then they frowned on that stuff. And, I remember, while this lady was carrying my child, I had to report to, county courthouse to go to prison, and you get shackled with three of your best friends. You know how it is. Get on the bus, the old gang, and, we get shackled. And I remember going down to the processing center, and I'm going in there, and I got my big book because I'm now sober, right? Spiritual. They take the big book from you when you check in. I didn't get to walk into it with it, but I remember walking in, and the sheriff dude, he looks at me and pulls me out of the line. And they fingerprint me once, and they fingerprint me a second time. I'm like, huh? I've been fingerprinted before. I'm rolling with it. I kind of got the game down. But he's like, you're not going to make it in here. And so my first year of sobriety, my job was cleaning up public highways and cleaning up public bathrooms on the beach, the Dina Dana program. I had my own little orange vest, and, God was looking out for me. Life started to happen. And, I got married, got separated, working on that whole thing, which is part of AA, which is a little mess, got to work through it, but we ended up having two beautiful kids. And, when I came into AA, like I said, I just wanted to stay out of jail. Today I've got 3 amazing children and 2 amazing grandchildren. Tino died, and I got another sponsor. He moved out of LA. And so, I got a guy named Clint Hodges for a while and, did that. And then I got a guy named Clancy I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Little guy hung out in AA for a while. And so I got a guy named Clancy I, and we ended up having an amazing relationship. Got him right before my 10th AA birthday. And Clancy got me involved with Ohio Street because, it's important to be of service. And so I am blessed to be able to help make sure Ohio Street, the nonprofit, continues to run in a manner that AA would be proud. Clancy got me involved with something called the Midnight Mission. About 15 or 16 years ago, I got on the board of the Midnight Mission. And so Clancy used to say a line that he used to step over people dying in the streets, when going into the office. And it's true. I'm down there every week on Skid Row, and people are dying every day. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, some are dying because of mental illness. They're not all alcoholic or drug addicts. There's a lot of crap going on down on Skid Row. But when we have a solution like we're all sitting here, it's sad. But luckily the Midnight Mission is based off of the 12 steps of philosophy. So we help a lot of people get sober. I've got a lot of dear friends that at one time were, I guess, the term now is unhoused, but that were homeless, drug addicts, alcoholics, dying. And the old man invited them into the midnight mission. And they went through a program and they got sober. You know, and we're lucky enough we have another program for domestic violence for women and children. And we get to help these people out. See, in AA, we're supposed to be of service. And it's not just in the meetings. It's be of service in our lives, be of service in our homes, you know, be of service in our community. Because when we get the gift, or when I get the gift of sobriety, it's important for me to do something with it. You know, I get to have some people that work with me. You know, I get to have a job. I get to help people with their, whatever, create some wealth or something. You know, it's amazing. And the more we are of service, the greater our lives get. I mean, how many years has Richie been sitting here being of service to the meeting? You know, being there. Because it's important to have someone there that when you know you walk into a meeting, you can almost exhale. Because you know it's going to be okay. Because, hey, he's here or she's there. And so, with that being said, I'm driving home from the midnight mission on Thursday night. Board meetings are on Thursdays. I'm feeling spiritual. Boom. I was doing God's work. And I'm rolling down, I think it's 7th Street, and kind of the Pico Union District or whatever through there. I'm rolling up and I see this car T-boned into a taco truck. I mean, hit it good. I was proud of that person. I'm rolling up on it, and the closer I get, I'm going, God, that looks like one of my cars. And I get a little closer, and I go, God, that looks like my son. And my son's kind of doing a little pass out over the steering wheel. And, you know, so he went out partying, and he was drunk, and he hit this taco truck. Apparently the people in the taco truck kind of went flying around. And so I surmised this situation. And I'll tell you, old habits are hard to die. So I look at him, I go, dude, run. You know, that's what comes to my mind. And then I see every person in that neighborhood with a cell phone going like this as he's running. But I'm pulling my phone out. Come back! You know, because, so he came back and, he comes up. And, you know, I look at him. He says, Dad, you know, he says that manner like I go, ooh, you're getting hooked up tonight, baby. And a few minutes later, some of LA's finest show up, and they didn't even do the field sobriety. They're like, click, click. It was like, you're gone. And then I got to figure out, am I a dad or am I a member of AA? Is it tough love? And my son's, you know, he's not the biggest dude, and he's the sweetest spirit. And I'm looking, I go, well, how long do I let him stay in jail? And I'm calling my sponsor. How long do we do it? You know, blah, blah, blah. But we did a little both. A little tough love. You got to learn a little bit about the LA County jail system, and then get him out and get him an attorney. But what happened was, you know, he got sentenced to that stuff called AA because they found him guilty because he was, you know. And mind you, his mother and I are fairly active in AA. And he was like, there's no damn way that I'm going to meetings where you guys go. You know, he grew up in the yard. He did just all this crap. And, you know, what is it? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree or whatever. So he went out to Hollywood to those late night meetings. He's a young kid. Loved it, you know. And because of those diverse, you know, different meetings, because there's a meeting for everybody. That's a great thing about AA. That's why there's 3,000 meetings a week in the greater Los Angeles area. So he loved West Hollywood. And then all of a sudden COVID hit us. And one of my sponsors, Dave W., started this thing called PG and Chill. And he goes, Spons, will you be a secretary of a meeting Wednesday at noon on Zoom? I said, sure. Brendan works with me in the real estate game. And I go, son, will you be my assistant secretary? Because our desks are right beside each other. And he did that. And then he's now extremely active in young people. So he did that. Then he was secretary for another person. Then he became the secretary of that meeting. But what I'm alluding to is by you sitting in this meeting today, you don't know, and keeping the principles and the structure of Alcoholics Anonymous, you don't know who you're going to save. Today you saved my son. Tomorrow it could be your son or daughter or someone else by just showing up. That's why it's important for us to kind of keep some structure going by. And I also do that to honor my sponsor, Clancy. So when he died, just plumb broke my heart. But what Clancy did me for also is I was not a good son to my father, and he died in 79. And what I was able to do is to be a good sponsee to my sponsor and show him respect. And it gave me the ability to make amends to my father. That my mother, I was able to help take care of her till she passed 2 years ago, Mother's Day, at 97. And she didn't even know who I was for the last 2 years. AA allows us to be responsible. It's not just about getting sober. That means you're just dry. It's about sobriety and being active and a part of your life and the lives of others. Thank you. Danny says I can't leave. I was going to go stage left. Where's that walk-off music? Am I supposed to read anything or do anything? Questions? Sometimes I'm a little hard of hearing depending on the tone of the voice, so I may ask you to say it twice. And if there's no questions, then we go home early, think about ourselves, get on with our day. This young lady right here. What do I do on a daily basis for my spiritual life? Some of it is I pause. Because then I give God a chance to come in. Because when I react immediately, that's me. And sometimes I just have to stop. My shower is my place, and driving to work is my kind of alone time. And, shower should be alone time depending. Never, not going there. But it's a place where I can spend a few minutes and just kind of God, hey, listen, let's do this day. What are we going to do? And a lot of my spiritual program is also trying to be of service. I get a lot of warmth and meaning by being of service to others and people I may not even know. And those are the best, because then I'm not getting a pat on the back and a attaboy. I'm getting to know I did something for someone else without them knowing. And that helps my spiritual path a lot. Thank you. I have a gentleman over here. What is the process of my step 10 and my frequency of it? My step 10, I don't write it out, but I do look at what has gone on during the day, sometimes throughout the day, because I'm a guy that can step into a big pile of poo during the day too. And sometimes I have to look at that step 10 and go, do I owe someone an amends? What's going on? So for me, the frequency of it is every day, but I don't sit down and write it out. But I do have prayers I say in my head, and in the morning I also have prayers before I get out of bed. And I say a little something to myself, because before my feet even hit the ground, I want to make sure I'm in the right framework. So I roll a little slow in the morning, making sure my head's straight. We'll get to you next, Rich, for this young man.
Do you have any specific advice for any meetings?
Do I have any specific advice for a newcomer for other than showing up for a meeting? Yeah, first thing is get a sponsor. You know, if you're going to go on a hike in the mountains you've never been, you get a map, you get a guide. You're about to go on a journey that you haven't done. Get a sponsor, because they already know where some of the potholes are or some of the danger things are. And also call them every day, or her, but I would suggest a man, but call them every day, even if you're not having a problem that day. Because you want to get in the frequency of calling them so that when a problem does happen, you're already in that habit and you can share it. Because you're going to run into some stuff. So when you're new, and the last thing is, you're not unique. Whatever you've done, someone has done it here 3 times, maybe 10 times. So welcome. Rich.
Sure, about 45 years ago, is want something done, give it to a vision first. You elaborate how you balance out all the service requests that you get and your life and family.
Damn. Okay, Rich X says, in the last 25 years, I must have said to him, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. And then he asked me, how do I balance everything out, whether it's AA, board meetings, work, family, kids? I have no idea. I really don't. I am busy. I am very busy, but never too busy to work with another alcoholic or to pick up the phone for my kids, because they're all blessings. But yeah, I'm busy, but it works for me. I'm not a guy that sits on the couch. Some people can, but it's just not me. I don't sit on the couch. I'm moving, that's where I function best. And I get to feel another form of my spiritual growth is by being of service. So it's not all about making a few dollars. Now, mind you, where money works, nothing replaces it. So I do have a job that I show up to and try to, pay my bills, be self-supporting through my own contributions. But that's secondary for me to what I do in the program and sit on different, boards or whatever. So, in the Catholic Church, they call it time, treasure, talent, just get out and do something. So I don't know how it works, but sometimes someone does, to be quite honest. Sometimes people don't get enough of me that they should. And I have to be aware of that, because sometimes I get so busy I may not dedicate enough time for my significant other or for things like that. So I have to be really aware of it, that I'm not hiding in service also. So I have to look at that at times and keep myself in check. We done? Oh, Richie.
Years ago, we lost. Pete and I used to have different reposting. And you all went and talked about it. I mean, I knew who you were before I moved to work. But Pete talked about how you would take people through the steps.
Okay. First off, he says, a young man I used to sponsor, Keith Robinson, a good guy. He loved AA, passed away. And Keith used to say on that how I used to take people through the steps, and he enjoyed it. And depending on where they are, sometimes it's a little bit different. If the person's got a little time, what we do is we pick up the big book, and it's kind of weird. We start at the first page, and we read the book, and we look at what's in the book, and we talk about it in our experience. And we try to, the whole time while we're doing it, we try to identify what's on the pages and look for the similarities. And we also do a little set-aside prayer, especially if someone's been sober for a while, then they drank, or maybe they didn't drink, but they're having a real hard time and they're going back through the steps. And sometimes we got to set aside everything we think we know for a new experience. And we sit down, we go through them together. And it's a process, but I think I get more out of working the steps with another man than they do. Because I'm staying sober another day. And, sometimes I can maybe slip in some of my crap, and when we're sharing of stuff that maybe I left out or maybe I forgot. And, when another person shares from the heart what's going on with them and they know they're safe, it's an amazing thing to know I can say this to you and it's not going to end up on social media. It's not going to, you're not going to judge me. You're going to just love me and say, hey, listen, we got a path. And so we start with a book and we read through it. When I was first sober, Clancy had a list of 7 questions, did those 7 questions. They were great. Then I redid the steps with Clint. And that's when it was a long process, but then I did it, with Keith and many others. Yeah, that's it. Boom.
Can you tell us to set aside prayer?
She asked me, I tell her to set aside prayer. And the way I say it is, God, let me set aside everything I think and know about you, about the steps, about Alcoholics Anonymous, for a new experience and a new understanding about you, the steps, and Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I get these preconceived things in my head, and I want to go on my old ideas or my old beliefs, but I need a new experience. Every day we need a new experience. The only time in AA we're, coasting is when we're going downhill. So we all need to continue to work this program if we want to continue to have our lives flourish. Am I done? Do I get out? Do I get a reprieve? I don't know. Is that it?
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal That shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.